I won active duty in the Army on 9/11. I'm in there doing the oath of enlistment when the first plane hit. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
So, I mean, so the plan was to do that, and it happened that the day you were doing that is the day.
Yeah, I just happened to be at MEPS on that day. And of course, they send everybody home because obviously all the airports are shut down for the next week. So it really wasn't until like the 17th of September when I officially came back in on active duty. And then they shipped me off to Fort Benning. I think even when I went to basic training and then officer Canada school, I guess you figured you'd be going into combat, but you didn't know when. I mean, you figure 9 weeks of basic training and then another 14 weeks of OCS. And then I had officer basic course, OBC, and then I had another 3 months of that. And then in that time frame of '02, then I got accepted for EOD school, which is another 8 to 9 months, almost a year long school, because I went to Huntsville, Alabama for an Army pre-course.
Right.
And then after the pre-course, then in January of 2003, I began EOD school at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, and then graduated August of 2003.
Did you volunteer for EOD school? You
Oh
wanted
yeah, yeah.
to?
Everyone that goes into EOD has to volunteer, because of the nature of what we do, which is disarming unexploded ordnance. Yeah, they kind of need that volunteer. You can't really
Right.
force somebody.
You want
Yeah, it would not make for a good EOD soldier to be forced
to, somebody
into.
who's been forced into that.
Yeah,
Well, so just describe what that is, and I guess I mean you can link this to you did two tours in Iraq. So if you want to, as you respond to this question, link
sure.
it to particular experiences in Iraq. What does EOD do?
The first before I go into that is it's trying to link why I chose EOD to begin with, which is when I was in the Navy. I mean, you were in the Navy as well. You saw the EOD guys on the ship. They were like the second special forces of the Navy next to the SEALs, and no one messed with the EOD guys. I mean, they got to come in when they wanted to. They wore whatever they wanted to wear. They got off the ship before anybody else did. And I said, they're always in great shape. So I said, I want to be like those guys. It's a volunteer thing. Two, it's a physical thing. They want you to be able to, I mean, it was 108-degree temperature in Maryland at the time when I'm testing in full mop gear. And you remember mop gear, mask,
Right.
rubber suit, everything. So you're just sweating profusely, having to pick up rounds, having to do cognizant testing, like the change on the floor. How much is the change? Can you break a dollar? I mean, just weird things like that, but just something that you can do. And you're competing against everybody else to get this one seat. And at the time, people didn't want to go into EOD by virtue that it was kind of limiting in your career. There was only so many spots you could go up, because we were still a very, very small unit. And so,
Yeah. Well,
but
let me ask you real quick
sure.
before you carry on. You know, the first part of Iraq, initially it looked like Gulf War II. You know, the
Sure.
statue
Yeah.
comes down, the president's on the carrier with mission accomplished, and then the IEDs start going off.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're watching what's going on with Iraq and seeing that, you know, IEDs and weapons like that are such a basic tool of the insurgency.
Right.
Did you ever have second thoughts about this field?
No, actually, I didn't. I mean, and to really be fair, the school was so all encompassing that I think, in '01, when this all happened, to '02 through '03, I didn't I didn't watch the news
Well,
because it was all about training. Like, obviously, when you go to boot camp, there's no TVs. I
right.
mean, you can't watch the news, so you have no idea what's going on. Especially after 9/11, I'm in boot camp. OCS, there's no TVs there for another 14 weeks. It was all don't get washed out, become an officer. That's the name of the game. And then after that, you go to officer basic course in Maryland. Once again, you got to pass all these tests, and then keep going. And then EOD, a year's worth of testing. And I didn't even really give it much thought. I mean, I'd already been to combat already. And so I knew that my job was to get ready. So if I got called up, I was going to be ready for it. So, but you don't want to get washed out of EOD school. I didn't fail one test in EOD school. That was so stressful for me. I mean, thank goodness I wasn't married. I don't know how married people made it through that school, because I came home and it was all about, because you couldn't take any, because everything was classified. You couldn't take study materials home with you. So you're kind of in your brain trying to go through all the tasks that you had to, because every other day you had a test. You had like 3 to 5 tests a week. Wow. And then you had Friday night and Saturday off. Sunday morning you had off, and then Sunday evening you're at study hall, and then the rest of the week. I mean, it just never stopped. So you're pretty much burned out, And then I really only started thinking about the idea of deploying once I graduated and went to my first duty station, which was in Fort Gillem, Georgia. My first tour versus my second tour as an Army officer in EOD were completely different. And from the standpoint of the first tour, I went from 04 to 05. I was a staff officer. So I went into Camp Victory, which was in Baghdad, as a support element to the companies that were actually on the ground doing the missions. So I worked in the palace as a liaison officer for the first maybe first 3 to 6 months of that, which was very slow and very boring, because it was hard to know what the guys on the ground were doing, because I had never been on the ground yet. You got this new EOD badge and you went through all this training, but you didn't get to actually do the job right off the bat. That's what I wanted to do. I said, I want to go do the mission. And they're like, no, So, and then I got an opportunity right before I pinned on captain, 03. I got to run as a team member for a 3-man team. So that's usually what we ran in. We're, between 2 and 4-man teams, depending on what we were doing out there. So didn't matter if I was the officer. The way EOD works is the most senior badge controls the scene. So I could have an E5, E6, could be a senior or a master badge. I had a basic badge, because you have to do 3 years before you get your senior badge, and another 5 years after that before you get your master badge. So didn't matter if I was a first lieutenant. My job was to be the best team member. I was running robots, running shots and stuff like that. So I had no illusion that I was anything more than someone there to be a sponge to learn.
Are you saying that early on in your 0405 tour, when you do begin to go out on missions, that the more experienced E5, for example, might actually be making the calls?
Oh, yeah.
Even though you're senior in rank, but he's senior in experience, and therefore...
The badge ruled. It wasn't the rank. Now, my rank helped us if I had to talk to some people, other officers, other people in convoys and stuff like that, then the rank would come in, because that's all they would talk to. They could care less about the badge. Right. But as far as the EOD operation on the ground, the senior master badge was the one in charge. And so, yeah.
And so then would you wait to be called? Let's say a convoy finds an ID, or would you go out with the convoys?
No.
Okay.
Now, once again, you can kind of go back and forth on that, because it really depends on the mission that you were assigned to. The way we were assigned is we were support for the convoys and the engineers that went out there, and they were looking for stuff. Just think of everything on the side of the road, right? All of the trash. They're the ones kind of seeing if they can see something. And if they find something, they said, this is a round, this is an IED. Then we get called. We man up our security detail and would go out there. So we knew when we got called, we knew we were going to something. It wasn't like you're driving all day wondering if you're going to get hit that day. Where we can get an IED come at us, or anything like that. So we knew that we were going out to a device. So the question is, where was the device? I don't worry about the device that I can see, because they don't get legs and they don't move. You just never get tunnel vision on that. I don't care about the one I can see. I care about the ones I can't see, because they're hoping that you will walk in or drive in, do whatever, and they'll hit you on the side. So.
And I've heard about, you mentioned the trash, IEDs in the dirt. I've heard about IEDs in dead animals.
Yeah, dogs, cows, yeah, everything. Bunch of artillery shells inside of a dog.
And then, I'm also thinking, and I don't know if this ever happened, but from the insurgents' point of view, they figure this out. We put an IED out that, will be a little bit easy for them to find. So they're going to stop, they're going to set up, they're going to call in EOD, and that sounds like a pretty good ambush opportunity.
Two different trains of thought, of course, is great for ambush, great for filming. If I can figure out your tactics, and that's what they were trying to do. Sometimes the devices, and I call this the evolution of IEDs. These guys didn't understand what they were building to begin with. Sometimes they thought, well, if I just put this artillery shell on the road and they drive by it, it'll explode. No, you don't understand how this works. So the first, it's like they evolved. And then they said, okay, well, maybe we'll put a blasting cap in there. Maybe we'll do some homemade explosives, or maybe we'll tap some wires together and that will do the shock to start the explosive train and blow everything up. I mean, they evolved, and you really evolved with the materials that they had available. I mean, every bomb maker had his or her own signature, and a lot of the signature was always based off of maybe the materials that they had on hand. So each region could have something different. They would not always be the same. So.
Did you have that experience of once the Iranians get involved, then, the vets I've talked to say, we've got these problems, and then, at least in certain parts of Iraq, the Iranians get involved and things start getting more sophisticated, and we realize that we're dealing with, with a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard for us to know or get the intel to say who we were fighting against. I mean, really, the Iraq war was a great training ground for the Syrians, the Iranians. I mean, every terrorist organization that wanted to play could probably come over the border pretty easy and get looped into the organizations there to say, okay, we got some guys that may be able to make some things. Let's go play. Let's go see how our tactics work. And so, once again, this isn't like World War I, World War II, or where everybody had a uniform.
Right.
We didn't know who our enemies were. I mean, I'm sure those are some of the other questions you had, which is, they're dressed up as civilians. They're the kids. They're kids one day playing soccer with you, and the next day trying to blow you up. And Americans had a hard time understanding that these are combatants. These aren't your neighborhood kids playing in your neighborhood. At least the kids in our neighborhoods aren't trying to kill you. So
right.
But they're being used.
And is it even more complicated that you don't know who the enemy is because they're not wearing a uniform, but at least in some cases you don't know who the enemy is because on Monday you're fighting, some neighborhood guy who just wants to rule his neighborhood, and then the next day you're dealing with gangsters, and the next day you're dealing with foreign terrorists who've come in. Does that fit with your situation too? Like we don't know who we're fighting.
Well,
because they're not wearing uniforms. We don't even know what their motivations are, why they're here fighting.
Well, not only the motivations, but this isn't your typical military. I mean, this wasn't a take this hill. We need this ground, so take this hill. This was see that hill? Occupy that hill. And by the way, everybody that's there, they get to live there. And you don't mess with them. Let them live their life, sell their tea, fix
Yeah.
automobiles, but you have to let them continue to live life. And we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we're not only
Do that.
war fighters, we're ambassadors, we're diplomats. And guess what?
Right.
You weren't trained for that. Who was? Not well. You can say you were trained for it, but no. I'm there to take a hill. I'm there to disarm this unexploded piece of ordnance. I'm not there to be your friend, but that's not what our mission was.
So it's so easy to see the huge advantage the insurgents have because if you're there to be an ambassador, all
Yeah.
you need to do is do something that leads to a reasonable reaction from you, but which will inevitably hurt some of the people living there or maybe hurt their homes or kill a goat or something. And that makes them mad at you. I mean, it just seems like in this context, the insurgents have such an advantage.
Well, all they got to do is gain your trust. I mean, how many times have we seen on reports that, the Afghan police force, hey, we go out with them, and all of a sudden the next day, this one guy kills everybody.
Right.
We try to trust these guys, and then next day they try to kill you. So, and the thing is, they were willing to die. I mean, that's crucial. I mean, I knew when I came over there, my job was to do my job, give my life if need be, but I'm coming home. That's my goal. My goal is to come home.
Right.
Their goal was they're willing to die for their belief, you know.
Wow.
And I was there for 04, 05 when the first Democratic election occurred. I mean, I sit and laugh at and chastise Americans for complaining about not voting. These guys stood in line, didn't know whether a suicide bomber was going to come in line and blow them all up.
Mm.
They knew when they kissed their wives goodbye, there was a chance when they went to go vote, they weren't coming home.
You take the oath in the army
Mhm.
on 9/11, and so there's this, great response to 9/11. Um, Iraq is related to 9/11. And then, of course, the whole thing about weapons of mass destruction. I think by the time you get there, those haven't been found on a large scale, I think. What was the war? And here I'm thinking of the two separate tours, 2004, 2005, 2008, 2009. That first tour, what was the war about in your mind, especially after you've been there a while and you've kind of gotten a feel for it? Is it about, hey, we're giving the people of Iraq a chance, or is it about me and my guys surviving and that's all it's about? I mean, what is this first Iraq experience you have about?
Well, you figure what 03 is when we went in there,
Yeah.
So we're coming in right behind the first wave or wave and a half. And so I have a hard time with the whole weapons of mass destruction because
Mm-hmm.
definitions are crucial.
Mm-hmm.
What is a weapon of mass destruction? How many people need to die for something to be classified as a weapon of mass destruction? I think the FBI had it at 14 or 15. You know how many different things that could be?
Sure.
But people in the States and everybody else, fair enough, had this, we want this big chemical warehouse. We want these big bombs that are killing everybody. That's what we consider and define a weapon of mass destruction. So
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of things. There was revenge. I think people wanted a little bit of payback. You came onto our property. This was the first time we had been exposed. So so there's probably a little bit of that. Did I have any revenge in my mind? I didn't. I wanted to do my training. I wanted to do my job. I've been deployed before. I'm an older lieutenant. You figure I'm 34, almost 35 years of age. So I've been around the block. These are all new kids, and I'm trying to get them through. through this. And of course, I'm not in charge of anybody. Remember that too. In 0405, I'm just a first lieutenant. I'm a staff officer, but I want to run. And so, I mean, so you had a little bit of that. You had, we're trying to get these people on their own feet. They've been oppressed and been under the thumb of Saddam Hussein for so long.
Right.
And we wanted them to get out from under that. And so now I want them to be able to live life. You know, I think the whole democracy thing always, I go, guys, this is our way of life. It's not their way of life.
Right.
What is their happy spot for that? I mean, I think we kind of force that. Now, to be fair, I'm not involved. My limited line of sight is this big. I don't have a full spectrum like what these generals, these 3-4-star generals are working with all the big tribal leaders and everybody else. I have no clue what they're working on. All I'm doing is working on going, okay, this is my lane. How do I effectively manage my lane? Am I safe on Camp Victory? Yes. But I'm itching to get out. Not that I want to go kill anybody, but I want to go do my job, you know? So I got to run for 3 months.
Yeah.
Which was a blessing to me and a curse to my wife. So
I hear that. Was your thinking, so let me just sort of summarize what I'm hearing. I mean, you know, especially early on, there is that desire for revenge. And, you know, people say, well, you know, Iraq wasn't directly involved in 9/11. And the answer is, well, that's true. But if they're kind of a danger to the world in a terroristic kind of way, you know, that's what it is. It's the war on terrorism. So there's that. There is the, you know, 2004, 2005, all that news about the first election, and maybe we can help Iraq become a stable country. And then there's just that thing of, hey, man, I've been through all this training. I want to put it to work.
One part of the 3 months that I was running as a team member, I was with the entire company. So we would go in shifts. So you have this 24-hour shift, and then you get like 12 hours to 24 hours off. So that 24 hours, the shift, you're on call. I mean, we could do 6 to 8 missions a day. And you're like, and you just come back and you're so exhausted. But after that, then you get a day off. But then if you're running a mission and you're just on a 3-man team by yourself, you're away from everybody else. You're responsible for everything in your sector of responsibility. So you got to do all those missions. So, and that's
so if you've got soldiers out there and you are a 3-man EOD team detached to them,
yeah.
and you're just kind of with them wherever they go.
Well, you remember when there's a team out there, they're just doing random patrols. They're doing their own missions. They're away from us. So we could be back on the main compound with our security element, just waiting. And those guys that are assigned to us as security, they don't move unless we move. So they're off when we're off. They're on when we're on. So there could be days when you don't get any calls. And then there are days when you can't stop rolling out there. And so, we have a dedicated security element that stays with us on the compound.
Yeah.
That's the way our security worked. I can't say that for whether the Air Force ran it the same way, whether the Navy ran it or the Marine Corps. I can't speak. I can only speak for what I witnessed, and what we had. The scenario I'll discuss was it was a VBID, a vehicle-borne IED, which is we get a call that someone had seen somebody run out of a vehicle, and they were really nervous, and someone had noticed that looked like there was some type of device maybe on the emergency brake inside the truck. So that's what we get called, and we know it's a sense of urgency because it's in a marketplace. So it could kill lots of people. So by the time we get there, we get the call, we roll out our security. We're, probably in the middle of the security. because remember, they're there to protect us. Even though we have guns with us, that's not our job. Their job is once we get there, they're securing all the roadways. They're out of their vehicles. They're looking because, as I said before, this is all about people filming how we do things, not necessarily us conquering their device. They would love for us to be blown up, because that's a win for them. That's a great publicity. That's a great propaganda. But they want to know how we did it. So we get out there. We know we're probably being filmed, but I can't worry about that. So we get out. We see the vehicle. Like I said, I think initially we probably threw a robot out there. I'd rather fix a robot than I can't fix a human. I can't put your arm back on. So we go around it and it's like, okay, we're fine. There's nothing out there. So let's go in. So we're as a team of 3 going around this thing going, okay, let's try to figure out what, is there a device? Is there not?
Let me pause you real quick. You send out the robot to see if this is a booby trap, if they're trying to lure
Sure.
you
Yeah.
with an IED around it, something like that.
Yeah. We want to see, does the robot set something off? Remember, I got about 5 cameras on these robots. So we can go up there and we can look underneath. We can see, are there other wires going out there? Is there a wire that runs out across the field or something, or across the road going, what can we see with the road? We got it to where it can look inside the cab. Wow. To say, is there something sitting on the thing, on the seat? Is there something there that we can see? And we don't see anything. So we said, okay, now it's our turn, because now we can see our eyes now. So we go out there and we're just kind of walking around. It kind of looks like one of those flatbed Tonka or Toyota, little small Toyota pickups, but it looks like it's got an improvised, like a bed liner, like someone shaped a stainless steel piece inside. And it's like, that's intriguing, but it doesn't clue us in on anything because all the sides are up. So it doesn't look anything. But we're kind of looking inside, and I think I was about to open up the door because we didn't see anything. And one of the guys was in the backside, said, "Hey, hold on." And he peeled back that stainless steel sheet metal, and we could see rounds inside there. Like, we think this whole vehicle is just one big bomb. So, okay. So our first thing is, okay, we need to take out a battery source, because that's probably what's going to cause something in there. So we go back and put a water charge, what we call a water charge. It's like a garbage can lid with a water can and maybe some pieces of C4. The whole idea is that it's going to rupture and send a jet up and may disperse circuitry without setting it off, so type of thing. So we do that with the front end of the engine block, so we can take out the battery. That's probably what we believe is probably powering this whole get up. So okay, so we did that. Go back there. We also realized on the emergency brake what it was time fuse. It was like a hand grenade. They took out the fuse from the hand grenade. So when you pull it, it sparks something, and then just time fuse would go off and set off everything in the back end. So the guy forgot to pull it. So he got nervous. He was not a true believer, is my feeling, because true believer would have stayed in there.
So you had a guy in the truck who you're assuming was supposed to set the fuse, but he saw soldiers coming.
The report was a suspicious vehicle, and somebody runs out of that vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So we knew there was a driver that parked it, and he looked really nervous, and he had ran out. So he just forgot to finish the job. He got a little spooked from something.
And were you confident as you're walking up to this truck? Were you confident that this was not something that could be set off remotely? By some guy looking at you at the window 2 stories up?
Yes and no. We have technology that can block things, signals and such. And that's probably as far as I'll go with that.
Right. Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, the whole idea with the robot was to see if there was a what we call a command wire. So somebody could have it in there, and it doesn't matter what you have that can block things. A pulse on a wire, you can't stop unless you sever the wire before it gets to the device. So we were confident that we didn't see any of that. So you walk up there, but you don't think anything of it. You just you're so focused on doing your job. I'm confident in my security element that if somebody looks like they're pointing a gun at me, they're going to take the shot and kill them. I have to be confident in that, or I can't do my job. You know,
Right.
So we probably open up the back end, and two massive wheel wells full of ordnance in each side.
Wow.
I mean, we pulled out 155 millimeter shells, like 2 or 3 on each side. We pulled out a propane tank that had HME, homemade explosive, with nuts and bolts inside of that. So when it blew off, and then we had 2 more canisters of napalm. So, I mean, they just wanted to hurt people and kill people and make the biggest scene that they could. So we were there for good 6 hours.
Just dismantling it?
Huh?
Just dismantling it?
Yep. Taking it all out, taking inventory. I mean, it sucks, but you have to stay out there, you know, and you got to take care of this device because you couldn't just blow it up.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, a couple things. So you're dealing with this VBID, and then, as you say, you've got your security. You've got your soldiers around providing security. So you're not going to be looking up, worried about any folks on rooftops or whatever. But your brain is still aware of that. So I mean, so it seems like psychologically you've got a couple of different things going on simultaneously. One, knowing that there's a lot of dangerous stuff out there, but you can't think about it.
Right.
But still, it's got to be there in some way. And then I'm thinking, as you're looking at this vehicle, working with this vehicle, this is an intensity of focus that probably you've never experienced in any other aspect of your life, combined with some adrenaline that's going.
Well, because when you think of like, oh, I'm focused on a test, or I'm like, yeah, but the test isn't going to kill you. This is going to kill you. I mean, you have the potential of not coming out of this alive. But believe it or not, you don't focus on that. You're so focused on your training. You're so focused on, how do I approach safely? How do I do this? How do I do that? And just the procedures. I can't worry about someone else's job. If I'm worried about somebody else not, trying to shoot me or something, I can't do my job. Then we're all in danger, So
Wow.
It's really not until you get done with that and you go back home going, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? And then of course, this is when you get to call home. It's like, so how was your day? Boring, nothing going on. We just kind of sat at the compound. I have to lie because you can't tell the story while you're there. You can tell the story when you get home, but you can't tell the story while you're there. And this is what I told all my soldiers. I said, we have all the power. And what do I mean by that? If we have a bad day, I can pick up a satellite phone and I can call my wife. If my wife has a bad day, she can't get a hold of me. She has to find somebody else to vent to, or cry on, or cry to. And she can try to send me an email. And if I have reception, if I have connectivity, I can try, but it's not a guarantee. Wow. So you have to call home regularly to let them know that you're okay and that you love them and that you're doing everything you can safely to come home. We were assigned to partner with an Iraqi bomb squad company. So we were there to teach them not our tactics, but tactics that could work for them. They did buy some of their own equipment, and we would try to teach them how to roll up on a situation and how to do scenario driven procedures. And we try to learn from them. I mean, it was a different world. Yeah, that whole trust thing. That was intriguing because we were supposedly required when we rolled into their compound to disarm and not have our weapons, but nothing locked and loaded. I said, that's not happening. That's not happening at all, because it was eerie at times when you're sitting there going, huh, we're in their house. Nobody would know if we all just got, I mean, they all had high ground. They were, in their buildings and stuff like that. We could walk in and they could just wipe us out if they really wanted to. But from that standpoint, with the job they had, there was a different level of respect because of they were doing the same type of job we were doing, which was disarming unexploded ordnance. And it was an interesting time to see their training that they had, because they had a different perspective. The officers were the only ones allowed to disarm. They were the educated, the enlisted guys were the fodder. They're the ones that, it'd be nice if they were still alive, but if they die, they die. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's intriguing.
So the Iraqi officers are the ones who are actually out there disarming the.
Yeah, they're the ones who had the most training in explosives. But that was just the way their hierarchy was.
Yeah.
Now the enlisted guys, I mean, it was hilarious, not hilarious, but it was intriguing to watch them when they would operate their robots and stuff like that. Like if they got into a position where they couldn't get their robot out, they would run down there, move the robot. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't do that. And he was like, if that robot gets stuck and something happens to it, I have to pay for it.
Wow.
I'm like, so your life is not as valuable as that robot is. Wow. And so that was, I mean, you're trying to understand that. And every time they got stuff, equipment or whatever, this was like trophies to them. Oh, look what we got. We're like you guys now. I'm like, yeah, not like us, but
yeah.
But that was part of that self-dependence on us. They get stuff. Oh, look, I got all these trucks. Oh, I got all this. But we did all the repairs. We did all the oil changes. They didn't do any of that stuff.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, I wanted to ask you this. Are you confident that they're going to maintain this equipment?
No. Oh, they didn't. It was proven that they didn't. As soon as we took all the maintenance stuff off their vehicles just ceased to move. They had no concept of doing oil changes and stuff like that. It was hilarious. It was sad.
Were you confident that none of these guys were passing information to the insurgents about how you guys operated?
Not 100%. I mean, that's why we knew when we would walk into their compound that you still had to be on guard. There were certain things that we could always share that would help them, help us, but nothing that would be classified. Yeah, they would not ever know anything more than we did. So we never shared. They always asked for more information. They always asked for. I'm like, no, because you're right. I can't tell. The guys that we were dealing with could have been straight up shooters, straight up guys, but it could be that one other individual who's taking all the notes saying, guess what? Now we have what we're looking for. Hey, can we get inside your vehicle? No, right. We need to see what's inside.
And he can sell that for $100 to the insurgents, right?
Yeah. Just the information. They could take a picture of it. I just come back in on active duty. I go back through the captain's career course now as an 03. I'm a senior badge EOD guy. I told my wife, I said, I'm deploying. I've been out of the game for a while. I'm the first in line to go. So we need to be prepared that wherever I end up at, I'm deploying first, just to let you know. Not so this isn't a surprise to her. So she understands that this is going to be coming up. So now I go back in as a captain into another staff position. But there's a company that's getting ready to deploy, a 44-man EOD company. And the guy that's in charge of them is getting ready to make 04. But he's an idiot. He went to school with this entire company. We just stood this company up. So this company has no experience except the platoon sergeants and first sergeant. They're old like I am. So, which is always funny. Yeah. As a 03, usually you're 26, 27 years of age, and I'm nearly 40. I'm 39. So, and I've already been deployed, and I'm ready to go.
A lot of experience.
So they say, hey, we're kicking this guy out. You're going in. So I am 2 months away. I just get there, and 2 months we're deploying. So I have to figure out team assignments and everything like that. So, so now the responsibility is heavier. Now it's, I'm taking over the sons and daughters to a foreign land, and the weight of the world is on you because you want to bring them home. Now the responsibility is I'm taking a company. I'm the guy in charge. I'm the guy that the buck stops with me. And whereas in 05, I got to run missions. I'm not going to be able to run missions. I have to rely on my new company, which I'm scared to death over and I nearly got fired before we even deployed because, I went to my battalion commander, who I'm older than, which is hilarious to think about. He's like, what do you think of your company? I'm looking through the paperwork, and I said, sir, they all just graduated school this year, 08. They just graduated. And I may have some E5s and E6s that were prior MOS, like infantry and stuff like that decided to come in. They have some experience, but they're not EOD techs. I got 3 platoon sergeants and a first sergeant who were there with me in 03, and who've got the experience, but they're not going to be running the teams. They're the ones going to be managing these kids. I said, how many of them do you want to die? Because that's what's going to happen. Someone's going to die. And he didn't like that, but I'm just being straight with you, sir. I'm like, I'm a senior badge wearer. I got years under my belt, but these kids don't have nothing. And they think it's a big game because, when you go through school, nothing's alive. Nothing's trying to kill you. I can look at a piece of ordnance on the ground that I'm supposed to do something with. I can kick it all day long. It's never going to go off. But I go, this is for real now. This is the stuff that, is going to end up getting someone killed. So I come in there with a different perspective. I'm the babysitter. I'm the dad. I'm the mom, and my goal is I have to take all the heat. So, they don't. They can do their job. And then, of course, you get the call. You get the call at 3:30 in the morning. You get a call at 3:30 in the morning. It's not a good call. So what had happened? I lost a guy. We took our first casualty. So, and that was a tough one. And that was you join. I wouldn't say it's a club, but you're one of those commanders who unfortunately didn't get to bring everybody home. So you go through a lot of fiasco and a lot of turmoil when you lose somebody, because now you got to bring you get a call at 3:30 in the morning. My battalion commander and my XO didn't even have the audacity to call me. It was the operations officer, who I had more respect for anyway. But he called me up and said, you lost somebody. And now it's my responsibility for, to notify everybody. So I got to call all my teams to let them know one of our guys died. And so you had to do that. So
What happened?
the best way I can explain it is you get those mortar shells, or I can't remember if it was a mortar shell or an artillery shell, but had a phone attached to it, to a motorcycle battery. You always have a battery source, and you always have something that's going to receive a message. So they did what they're supposed to do, which is interrogate it, pull it apart, took it back, and we knew through history that there would always be some type of fingerprints that we could hopefully identify the person who put it together, whether that was the bomb maker, whether I was just someone on his or her team, so my guy was, you're carefully removing tape so you can expose the fingerprints. And once again, everything was separated, but it was a new tactic, something we hadn't seen before. Because what you have to remember is that everything that we learned in school was all conventional type, shells. So they have different procedures. An IED is improvised, which means it's all at the mercy and the what's the best way? Imagination of the bomb maker.
Right.
The question is, am I better than he is today, or is he better than me? So what we believe was a battery, was like a little 6-volt battery, was actually an improvised claymore with a timing device inside. So they were hoping he was going to bring it to him and take it apart. And that's when it went off. Killed him instantly. So the device was never going to blow up that big shell. It was never going to do any damage to anybody. They were after my guy. So
which gives us insight into how
sure.
he operated, right? There's a certain cleverness in thinking things through, right?
Right. And it was tough because I as a seasoned EOD tech, along with my first sergeant, who were mastered badges and had been in for 15, 17 years, they said it the same. They said, that thing would have killed us too. It didn't matter. He did everything right. It wasn't like because he was brand new, it was his fault. It was going to get somebody. And unfortunately, it was my guy that day. So that got him.
So then what follows that? Is there, what do you do with to get everybody back on track, to get them back on mission?
Well, we're very fortunate with EOD because we usually pull everybody back into a central location, and that was back at our main compound base. So what happens is that other units, other EOD units, take a team and they disperse them to where all my guys were. So my guys come in for about 3 to 4 days, so we can go through a safety stand down. So it usually what happens, just like everything else that you can imagine, somebody dies, your unit goes on a communication blackout, which means no one can call anybody, no one can receive anything. So because we have to give the teams back in the States time to notify the family, so you bring everybody back in. This is something that the military has done a better job in, which is getting you to see doctors right away, talk to a psychologist. The thing is, most people are resistant to that, and call home. As soon as we get the notification that the family has been notified, then we can call. But you also understand that there's a heightened level of anxiety amongst the family back in the States, because everybody has a schedule that they usually call home. So when one person doesn't get a call on the time they're supposed to be scheduled, they know something's wrong. So everybody's freaking out. Everybody's trying to see was it my husband? Was it your husband? What happened? does anybody know anything? They're calling everybody. And of course, again, no answers whatsoever. So my guy was a single guy. So it wasn't anybody there. But of course, the bad thing is that I have to tell some of my senior guys to go call their wife. Call your wife. I'm fine. I get that you're fine. She needs to hear that you're fine. Okay, I don't care. You don't have to cry. I don't. You call her. And it's an order. I mean, why do I have to tell you? Why do I have to give you a direct order to call home? And of course, you got all the stuff that's got to go with it. Now we got to send all the stuff home. So we got to do all the inventory and send all this gear back home. We have to get ready for a memorial service in country. I have to write the family a letter. And you're just sitting there. I sat at a computer for 5 hours. What do you say? There's nothing that you can say that's going to fill that hole of their 23-year-old son gone, So you write a letter, then you write something to say at the memorial service, and what do you say for that? I called my dad. Because my dad was a pastor at that time. I had just got out of being a pastor. And I said, I know you've done eulogies. I know that you had to do a lot. I need some help. And he goes, well, was he hated in the unit, or was he liked in the unit? I go, what does that matter? He goes, if they're hated, it's easy. You can do a good story or two and you're good. I go, well, he was probably the most liked guy in the unit. He goes, well, that's going to suck for you. And that was it. He hung up on me. I'm like, okay. So, you try to remember everything, and, you write something eloquent, because this is back here. This is still going on back in the States. They're doing a service at Fort Hood. There's a representative that we had at Dover to meet the body, because we fly somebody over with the body. So they're never alone. And then the Patriot Guard, which was the motorcycle group, they escort the body back up to the home of the family. And so then they go through this. I mean, understand, this is about halfway through. So none of us are home. So the family's already mourned and gone through the ceremony before we get back home, and then destroy them again when we decide to fly them back, which just depends if you want to hear all that too. So, because it's not over with, because it's all about closure. I mean, the military did a decent job of trying to get closure, not only for the family, but for the soldiers as well, the unit. So Red Cross pays for one trip to the base, because when we got back home, First Cav, or Cavalry Division, is who we supported. They have their own wall. So they're going to honor our soldier and their soldiers as well, with the name on the wall there. So we fly the family out. And you're sitting there. I'm sitting there, not knowing who I'm going to get. Which parent am I getting? Am I going to get the parent that when I meet them, they spit on me? Am I going to get that parent who slaps me? Or do I get the parent that's going to cry with me? We got the parent that cried. I mean, they didn't blame us. They really didn't. And so that, that was impactful, because I told my wife I was prepared for every one of these scenarios. And I understood the scenario. I understood the pain. In 2005, I lost friends because I was also there. And this one in 2009 was more personal, because he was under my watch.